This is Duke University.
This is an important day for us because we're really, this is the end really of a little bit over 2-year project that we've been working on. Started with application to the National Institute of Justice for the funding to do the grant. Our report is almost done, but it won't be publicly available probably for another month. We have to go through a peer review process at the Justice Department, but after that it will be available. So this is really our first opportunity to present our findings and our recommendations, and then also to get some feedback from the general public and experts in the field. So it's this an exciting day for us, and thank you to the Franklin Institute for the Humanities for hosting us, and thank all of you for coming. The topic of our project we're calling Anti-Terror Lessons of Muslim American Communities. And the research questions that we set out to try to answer are: why do we have low levels of radicalization among Muslim Americans? When we look around the world, whether it's in South Asia or the Middle East, obviously we have much higher levels. And then in other diaspora countries like Europe, although this isn't a comparative study, I think it's really assumed and acknowledged that there are much greater levels of very serious violent incidents and radicalization that have gone on in Europe than in the United States. So a lot of people have conjectured as to why that's so. It's a matter of demographics, a matter of economics, it's a matter of people pursuing the American dream, but frankly there's absolutely no research on that issue. So we desired to try to set out and try to answer some of those questions through at least the form of research that we put together. Then we wanted to know what then are, if there's a lower level of radicalization, some people could say, well, it's because there's tougher law enforcement or there's tougher external kinds of things that led to that. We wanted to look at the internal factors. What was it about American Muslim communities and what were their practices that might be leading to those low levels of radicalization? So those are our two research questions, and I think since I've mentioned the word radicalization 6 times already, we ought to have at least some working definition of what that means. And I would say that it has 2 elements, really. First, to be what we would call radicalized, you have to have adopted this religious-based ideology that all of us are familiar with that advocates the use of violence as a response or to address in some ways a set of political grievances. But it's not enough, in our view, to say that you're fully radicalized if you just do radical talk, if you have radical ideas. To truly be radicalized, in our view, we're looking at also concrete actions where someone has either engaged in that violence based on this ideology to further the ideology, or at least has shown a willingness or steps in furtherance of violence. Maybe they got caught before they could do it. But I think because in the end, if all people do is espouse the radical ideology and it's all about talk, then it's not that much of a problem. But you get to 9/11, you get to instances, London, Madrid, actual terrorist incidents. Well, that's the big problem, is when people actually take action based on that ideology. So that's what we're looking at when I talk about radicalization throughout this report and throughout this talk. Our 4 research sites were the first 2 we did in the first field session in the June-July 2008. We were in Seattle and right here in Raleigh-Durham. Who knew that 2 years later we'd actually have a serious set of terrorism arrests right here. We'll see where that case goes. And then the second field session in the winter, we were in Buffalo and Houston. So one of the grad students drew the short straw and was in Buffalo for the winter. He actually chose it, which I never, and Ebrahim went to visit him with his boots on and everything. So that's where our field sites were. We picked these communities. Some people say, well, why didn't you look at Dearborn? And as a matter of fact, the people who gave us the grant said, why didn't you go to, because that's the biggest Arab-American community really in the country. And we thought we wanted to go to, first of all, more medium-sized communities where they could, where our researchers in a short amount of time could more readily cover the breadth of the community, and also places that really hadn't been studied as much. And so that's why we picked these sites.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.